All right, welcome to the first episode of the podcast, and I'm confident that future Big John has, of course, figured that out. I'm sure that he will spend a lot of time figuring out the best way to upload it to a podcast and figure out the best title also to name this. And I'm sure he's done a pretty good job with that, and it's at least good enough. And I'm sure that there's a link in the description of how to get to the podcast if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm sure all of that will probably happen in the future and has happened as you're listening to this. I'm very optimistic about that. But so yeah, I hope that that makes it a little bit easier for some of you guys that were wanting it as a podcast. I know it gives you more flexibility on where you can listen to it and all that kind of thing. You guys that just need to hear all my dumb ideas. And speaking of needs, one thing that, of course, we all hear a lot is, why do we need guns? Why do we need anything? Did you like that transition, by the way? I made it sound like I didn't intend on talking about this. I just said need, and it made me think of it. Pretty clever, huh? But why do we need guns? Why do we need them? Well, I mean, technically we don't need them. I mean, technically all we really need are food, water, a place to go to the bathroom, and to not have to be so close to it that you get sick. Depending on where you live, maybe shelter. I mean, really, that's all we need to keep our body running, right? And that's all that matters, of course, right? You know, our actual experience in life and our mind, doesn't matter. Just what do we need for our body to function, right? That's all that really matters. Now, of course, freedom is what it's all about. Freedom is why we need guns. Freedom is why we need fast cars and all these kinds of things. We want as much freedom as realistically possible. Now, of course, there are some limitations that have to be there, because if we're going to function in a society, which I think society is a good thing, it is generally a good thing, there has to be some limitations. Obviously, we can't, be running around with nuclear bombs so some wacko can just blow us all up. Obviously, that doesn't make sense. There are some things that, yes, they are dangerous because they just kill people just totally indiscriminately because they're just incredibly dangerous. So yes, there are some limitations, but the ultimate goal is, of course, to have the most freedom possible that does not cause anyone any catastrophic damage. I would rather live in a society that's slightly more dangerous and have freedom, because when you have freedom, then you are responsible for yourself. I don't like it when institutions or society makes me feel like I'm responsible for other people. I don't get to have guns because other people might not be able to handle the responsibility. I just can't. I can't be okay with that. And to me, freedom is it's a personal choice, something that you decide, this is reasonable for me to have or take part in, and then you fight for whatever institution that is over you at a specific time to respect that, basically. But whether they respect it or not, that freedom is a decision that you make. You make that decision. Freedoms are not given to us. Freedoms are decisions that we seek to have respected by governing institutions. So that's important. But back on kind of the topic of like things that you need. I mean, that is an argument that they use against us a lot. Is why do you need that AR-15? All this kind of, that's a military assault rifle. Why do you need all that stuff? I mean, okay, if you're looking at it that way, why do you need a fast car, right? I mean, I have in my garage, I have a 1969 Buick Skylark. It's a piece of junk. I'll be honest. I mean, it is a piece of junk. It's not as impressive as it sounds at all. But it's basically like a really rough kind of drag racing car, essentially. And it's like they call it the Millennium Falcon, because it looks like hell, and it rattles like crazy, and it sounds like it's about to fall apart, but it goes extremely fast. I mean, it is very fast. You can't just cruise with it, of course. I mean, but if you just stomp it, and it's a 3-speed, And I mean, you just really let that thing go. It's very, very fast. Now, of course, I don't need that. That doesn't really serve me any practical purpose. It's not really good for. It's not good for going on long trips. It's not good for. I mean, I guess I could haul things with it if I had a trailer, but it's really not good for hardly anything. Honestly, just fun. It's really just fun. And okay, maybe it makes the road a little bit more dangerous, because if I stomped on that gas too hard, my tires would spin out, and if I didn't know what I was doing, I might lose control and possibly wreck into another car. Yeah, that's possible. So I don't need that, but my having that could possibly make the world slightly more dangerous. But you know what? I would be more than willing to put up with the world being slightly more dangerous so that we can enjoy some of the great things in life, like fast cars, guns, all these kinds of things that are deemed too dangerous for society at certain times. Except you never hear those arguments about cars, honestly. Cars kill tons of people every year, but you don't ever hear those arguments because everybody has cars, right? And everyone thinks that they need cars, which technically don't even need cars, really. I mean, you know, we can walk to where we need to work. If you can't, then live closer. I mean, that's the thing. You don't really need cars either. But since everybody has them, then they don't have to worry about that. With guns, not everybody has them. So people who don't have them, they don't understand that that you can be responsible with guns. They don't understand that. They think that like just the existence of guns is just too much of a temptation for people. They just can't handle themselves. Yeah, there's going to be some incidents. That's going to happen. There's going to be incidents with anything. But that's not a reason for us to lose our freedoms just because, oh, the world might be slightly safer. And the thing is, and the big difference with cars, of course, you know, cars kill tons of people. Nobody has a problem with that. But cars can't save your life. Cars are just for convenience. That's the thing. Guns can save your life, literally save your life. You can live longer because of guns. That is very, very possible. Cars, I mean, a car can't really save your life. Or maybe if you got bit by a really poisonous snake or something and you're trying to get to the hospital really fast, maybe in that situation. But for the most part, cars are just dangerous. And people forget how dangerous of a thing that is, driving cars. I mean, we're flying down the road at 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. And there's other cars doing the same thing right next to us and even going the other direction right next to us. And we're literally just a jerk away from instant death, basically. And we face that every single day, just about, most of us, when we leave our house. No one has a problem with that, all right? So yeah, I don't get that. That whole why do we need guns argument is really frustrating. And I remember whenever Dad spoke down in Alabama for this, it was some kind of organization that was made up of a bunch of really wealthy people, and Dad was one of the speakers because some of them were interested in guns, but they weren't all gun people. And I remember one guy asked the question, "Why does anyone need an assault rifle?" And Dad quickly fired back, "Why does anyone need a Lamborghini?" And what's funny is because this guy, he could have had one. He was that kind of guy where he may have had 2 Lamborghinis sitting in his garage. And you could tell he was kind of like, oh, didn't think of it that way. It's just, that's the thing. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir saying all this stuff, but it's definitely something to think about whenever you're hit with that argument of why do we need guns, and people say that to you. As most of you probably already know, comparisons I think are one of the best ways to try to fight that. Compare it to cars is a good one, I think. But I'm sure there's others that that I'm not thinking of right now. But that's just a really frustrating one. Why do we need guns? Why do we need anything? It's about freedom of choice. The point of life is not just to hurl your body of flesh and bones through time. That's not the meaning of life. I mean, not that I know what the meaning of life is. I'm just saying that's not what we're supposed to do. Just survive, just exist. No, I mean, we're here to do things, regardless of what you think that is. Just living is not part of it. Freedom is a very important part of life. Being free in your body and in your mind. But anyways, that's one that kind of gets me. Speaking of gun control issues, one of the most important issues when it comes to actually shooting a gun and becoming proficient with a firearm, to me, my own personal opinion, is trigger control. Your trigger squeeze, how you pull the trigger. I think most people probably know that, but I think it is the most important part. And to understand that, if you're unclear, think about what it is that you're actually doing when you're shooting a gun, right? So you've got this piece of metal, and it's a machine, it's a hunk of metal, wood, plastic, steel, whatever. And now mainly it's an issue, of course, when you're shooting something pretty far away. But so you've got this metal pipe, this tube, where a projectile is going to be leaving whenever you operate a lever. And you have sights where you can line it up with a specific thing in front of you. But the tricky part is, now assuming that gun is 100% accurate or close to it, that wherever that barrel is pointed at the time that the round explodes, that's where it's going to go. Of course, relying on the accuracy and all those types of things. But basically, that's where the round is going to go. So your challenge is you have to operate this machine without disrupting that, basically. So you're trying to pull that trigger, which is a very delicate thing. You're very, very delicately, you have to pull that trigger so that you don't disrupt the positioning of the firearm that you've already decided is where you want it to be positioned, based on the sights, which you hope are on. And you have to squeeze that trigger without disrupting the position of that barrel, which is really difficult when you're talking about shooting at longer ranges. It's actually, it's pretty difficult. And to me, that's what shooting comes down to. That is what makes shooting hard, is to do such a delicate thing. And then you've also got the recoil. So you're doing this really delicate thing where you're having to hold this thing very still and just squeeze the trigger. And then as soon as it breaks, there's going to be this loud boom, right? And you know it's coming. You know it's coming. But you have to focus and concentrate and just squeeze that trigger. And as soon as you do it, there's going to be a big boom. And depending on what caliber you're shooting, of course, there's going to be a lot of recoil and all that. And you know that that's coming. You can't put that out of your mind. You know it's coming. So that's really what makes it difficult. So honestly, you hear a lot of people talk about dry firing your guns for training and practice. And as much as it's talked about, it's honestly not talked about enough. I mean, you could just about make yourself a really good shooter without even ever firing a gun, honestly. I've actually seen laser sights used. One of the few good uses I've actually seen for laser sights to help with this is you have like a dot or something on your wall and put the laser sight right on it, and then just try to squeeze that trigger and then watch the sight and watch it jump, and try to do it just keep doing it over and over and over and over until you can get it to jump the least amount possible. It's going to move a little. I mean, unless you have some type of special crazy like I had this idea for which honestly I don't think this is probably an original idea. I'm sure that someone's already working on this and that this will be the future of guns, but technically trigger control, the whole trigger control issue could actually be eliminated to an extent with some type of laser trigger, where basically, and I'm sure the technology is already here, where basically you have in your trigger guard, there's no actual physical lever that you have to pull to make the gun fire. There's like a sensor or some type of laser or some type of force basically inside the trigger guard, where maybe like you hold in a button on the grip to activate it, and then you basically just break that connection with your fingers. So there's no resistance whatsoever. You're just breaking an invisible connection or like a laser. Basically, just break that connection with your finger, and then that makes the gun fire. So there would be no disruption whatsoever of the firearm, basically, other than maybe just whatever moving your finger does, essentially. And that, I'm sure that's where guns are probably going. That'll probably happen eventually. But basically, oh, I almost lost track of what I was saying. But that can kind of help you understand if you're unclear on the whole trigger control thing, is like what it does exactly. I mean, it's actually quite difficult when you think about it. You have this object that you're trying to hold very, very steady on something, and then you've got to squeeze that trigger without disrupting it. I mean, that is difficult. So dry firing, doing that over, so to me that's the hardest part about shooting right there, is dry firing, is your trigger control, pulling the trigger without disrupting the position of the barrel on your target. So that's something that you don't even need ammo to work on necessarily. So you can just dry fire your gun over and over and over. And typically most guns, unless it's a rimfire, dry firing, it's not a problem. But if you're worried about it, you can get snap caps, and then you don't even have to worry about it at all. I think there might be some guns that aren't rimfires that I've heard that are bad to dry fire. So don't quote me on that. But like I said, you can get snap caps in basically any caliber, as far as I know. So just do that and work on your dry firing. These days the ammo prices are so high. That's a great option. It's not all that fun necessarily, but do it while you're watching TV or something, or listen to listen to a podcast or whatever it is, a radio show, whatever you're doing, and just sit there and just dry fire that thing over and over and over and over. And plus, I've even heard some triggers actually get better the more you pull them. But don't quote me on that either. But yeah, dry firing is really important, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges of shooting a firearm, really of any kind, but mainly a handgun, is that trigger control. And then of course the recoil aspect of it definitely plays a role, which that you can't obviously recreate by just dry firing the gun in your house. Of course, safety first, check it a million times, make sure it's unloaded. Don't have any ammo sitting around when you're doing that. But you'll have to go to the range, of course, to get used to the recoil and all of that kind of thing. Which something else too that I had written down in my notebook of dumb ideas to talk about was how much recoil affects your shooting. Now, of course, you got the whole macho element of shooting, and the inflated ego is, I can handle any kind of recoil. Well, duh. I mean, most people can handle most recoil. Like, that's not really something to be proud of. I don't care how much of a tough guy you think you are. I guarantee you, most people, regardless of what level you're at with your shooting experience, whether you're one of the best or one of the worst, the recoil of the gun is going to make some difference in your shooting. Almost every time. I've never ever seen someone that didn't shoot better with a 22 pistol than they did with like even a 9mm or something like that. Even though 9mm, no one even thinks about that as really having much recoil, but it still makes some difference. The less recoil you have, the better you're probably going to shoot, regardless of where you're at, where your level is. And that's just been in my experience. So what that tells me is that recoil, along with trigger control, recoil actually does play a pretty big role. And that's something that you want to think about when you're trying to decide what caliber you want to carry. It's not because you should carry a 9 because you can't handle the 40. You're not tough enough. You got to get that ego stuff out of your head if you're still one of those people that thinks about it in those terms. It doesn't matter. Nobody really cares. There's some people that care, but they're idiots. It doesn't matter. Like, it does carry what best fits your needs, what serves you the best. Carry that. Don't worry about what other people think about it. I don't care if it's a pink gun and 25 auto. If for some reason you feel like that serves your needs the best, then carry that. Don't worry about what other people say, the whole ego thing or the macho element. Guns are not macho, they're just tools. So So sorry, I went on a little rant there, but so yeah, recoil plays a big role. It really does. I've been shooting long enough. I can handle some of the hardest kicking handguns out there, but I'm not going to shoot them as well. I'm just not. I'm not going to shoot them as well. Something that kicks less. And also, when it comes to like the 500 Magnums, some of the really, really hard kicking revolvers, I can handle them. I'm a big enough guy. I've shot long enough. I can handle them, but I don't really enjoy it. I don't really enjoy those guns. Occasionally, sometimes it's kind of fun just for, whatever. Just like, oh, look at me shooting a big gun, whatever. I mean, sometimes it's fun for that, I guess. But I really don't enjoy those that much because some of those guns, they really do hurt. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit it. They hurt, some of those guns. And I can handle it, but it's not that fun, to be honest. And sometimes, like I said, you get into kind of an ego thing with those. But basically, in a nutshell, you're just not going to shoot as well 99% of the time. I'm sure there's exceptions out there, but you're just not going to shoot as well based on my experience with a gun that recoils more. Now, maybe that difference is not that strong. Maybe you shoot your 1911. Maybe you don't shoot your 45 1911 quite as well as you do your your H&K 9 or your Beretta 92 FS. I mean, maybe you don't shoot it quite as well, but you shoot it almost as well, so it's worth it to you to have that 45, right? I mean, that makes sense. But just keep that in mind, that recoil is going to be a factor regardless of your experience level and how big or strong you are or how inflated your ego is or how tough you think you are. Recoil is going to be a factor. And another thing, too, I think it's important with anything that we do in life or anything that we own is make sure that it's serving us. I mean, one thing I thought about the other day, it's really easy to get sucked into like certain TV shows and stuff like that because let's face it, there's a lot of entertaining TV shows out there. And now I don't even have cable anymore because because of something I kind of realized. So I really broke it down in my head one time. I was like, okay, I watched this TV show. Okay, why do I watch it? I like it. Okay, I like it. Why do I like it? Because it's entertaining. And because I know the characters. So I like it. Okay, why do I know the characters? I know the characters because I watched it. All right, and it's entertaining because, someone put a lot of hard work into it, so it's entertaining. So I watched the show ultimately because I am seeking entertainment during that time. Well, there's lots of ways to get entertainment, and there's a lot of TV shows out there that you don't really get anything out of. Even the ones that claim to be somewhat educational, you don't really get anything out of those that you can't get from reading one paragraph of an article online. A lot of cases. So I've kind of gotten away from really watching much TV at all. Really, I mean, I don't even have cable anymore. I had DirecTV, which is a horrible company. My experience. I've had bad experiences with DirecTV and AT&T, and I'm just glad to just be out from under those. Well, I have Comcast internet, so I'm not out from under the cable companies, unfortunately, because you gotta at least have internet. But it's just nice to have it out of my house. I don't have that temptation of just flipping on the TV and just basically just vegging out on the couch and doing nothing. I actually now I research things and read things and try to learn things, experience things and improve myself and all this kind of stuff. And it's just amazing what it's done in my life, just turning off the TV. I mean, it's such a simple thing, really. Think about it, but it's had a huge impact on my life. And I recommend it to anyone to just try not watching TV for like a month or so. It's pretty amazing. But the thing is, I realized that it wasn't really serving me. It wasn't really doing anything for me in my life that I truly wanted. It was more like a trap, really, in a lot of ways. So I encourage you to obviously to do that with the guns that you're carrying for self-defense or using for home defense, guns that you're relying on to protect your life. Other guns, doesn't matter. I mean, those are just the guns that you're collecting and stuff like that. Those are for fun. Those are just that's different, right? And we all know that. But the guns that you're protecting your life with, make sure that it's serving you. Make sure that you don't just have that gun because someone made you feel like you'd be cool if you had it, or just because maybe you just like the way it looks or something like that. Make sure that it's serving you. I mean, there's lots of guns that I bought because I like the way they look, but the guns that I actually really rely on to protect my life, they are strictly practical. I want them. They are serving me. I don't serve them. They serve me. They're a tool. So make sure that you extend that also to other things in your life, just things that you're doing. Just stop and think about it. Okay, why am I doing this? What is the desired result? What am I trying to achieve by doing this? And am I even getting that? Or do I even want that in the first place? And you'll be amazed what you'll find sometimes, things that you're doing that you never even really wanted to do in the first place. And it's amazing how long you'll do things like that. There's so many things I've done throughout my life for years that at one point I just realized, wait a minute, why am I doing this? This doesn't do anything for me. This is just crazy. So yeah, I think that's important to do with guns and other things. So I promised you guys that I would talk about what I thought my album of the week, or of this show. It's not really of the week because I only typically do the album recommendations when I'm just doing these by myself, just as a monologue. So I told you guys that when I first did the podcast, as I'm sure that future Big John has already set up, I would tell you that the album that I chose for this episode would be what I thought was the greatest album ever created, and also my favorite, obviously. I mean, if I think it's the greatest album ever created, it's probably going to be my favorite, right? And some of you may have already guessed, I don't know, but that album is The Dark Side of the Moon. Now, you might disagree with that. You may have expected me to say Metallica, some Metallica album, because I'm a huge Metallica fan, which I love Metallica. They're great. I love metal, heavy metal. But The Dark Side of the Moon, it just has a special place for me. I really do. I mean, you listen to that thing start to finish. It's not even like it's not really a collection of songs. It's almost like it's like one big song. It's like, it's hard to even put into words. I mean, it's really more of an experience than it is an album. I mean, it's just unbelievable. There are so many things that I've learned from that album, either things that I've thought of while I listened to it, or things that I heard in the album that really it gave me some interesting things to think about that I use to better my life. And I understand it on so many different levels. When I first heard it, I understood it on one level, and then as I got older, I understood it on a different level. And it seems like almost every time that I listen to it, in every phase of my life, I understand different parts of it. I understand far more of that album now than I did even 2 years ago. It's just amazing how much in-depth things there are in that album, and just how great it is. I mean, it's one of those albums where I try not to even listen to it all the time because I love it so much that I don't want to ruin it for myself. But every now and then I'll bring that thing out. I actually have 4 copies of it on vinyl. And I think 2 or 3 of them, I think, are first pressings that actually came out in 73. And I've got another one that I bought that I think it was released sometime in the 80s. It's got the barcode on it, and but it actually has the poster in it and stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's just a great album. I mean, it's just, man. I mean, Pink Floyd is great. All their stuff is great, but Dark Side of the Moon, that's just a marvel of human ingenuity. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And if you have never heard The Dark Side of the Moon, you need to listen to it. I mean, if you don't listen to any of the other albums that I recommend on here, The Dark Side of the Moon is the one that you need to listen to. It is unbelievable. It's just great. But anyways, one thing too I was going to talk about is back on the gun control issue and all that kind of stuff. Is one tactic that as you guys know that they love to use is they like to use children against us. Now they use this for a lot of things, and it's easy to see to look at the surface and see it as, okay, they're using children against us. Say, oh, think about the children and all this kind of stuff, and not that it's really that profound of a realization, and everyone I'm sure gets this, but basically what they're doing is it's what I call emotional warfare. Basically, the people who want to limit our gun rights, at least the ones who are actually like putting some of these campaigns together to try to limit our gun rights, they seem to understand that most of the population doesn't have their emotions under control, that we don't really understand them, we don't know how to use them, and that we don't really know what we're doing when it comes to emotion. So they use that against us, and they know that children, because they know that there's something innate in us that triggers a very strong emotional response when it comes to children. So they know that is one of the best things that they can use against us. And there's other ways that they use emotional warfare against us to try to make rally people behind getting rid of guns, of course. But that's a big one. They use children. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, obviously children, they are important. I mean, they are a future or whatever, that whole thing. But I mean, here's the thing. If everyone only lives for their children, right? Let's say hypothetically that's how everyone is. You only live for your children. That's your whole purpose in life, is to raise your children, and that's it. Then no one ever lives, right? I mean, if you're only living for the next thing, then you're never living at all, right? But children are important. I mean, they need to be taken care of. They they're kind of helpless, obviously. So that's why they trigger such a strong emotional response when they're used by the media, because they're helpless, and we have to care for them, to take care of them. But the thing is that they are small people. They're just small people is the thing. Children aren't just inherently more important than their adult counterparts, and it's like we forget that whenever someone uses, oh, but think of the children. Oh no, because a child might get hurt somewhere, that means that we should never do that thing, or whatever that thing is, And maybe it sounds kind of harsh to say that, but I mean, the thing is, it's just emotional warfare is all it is. You just got to see it for what it is. And I think most of us do. It's just, being aware of these things really helps to be able to fight it, because sometimes the really tricky part about emotional warfare is that it happens at the subconscious level. That's the thing. It doesn't matter how smart you think you are, or how much you know, or how much you're aware of. Your subconscious mind is very, very open to attack, and really the only way to protect it is just to keep it away from things. Honestly, that's really the only sure way to actually protect it. You might watch some news story where they're saying, oh, your child could find your gun and all this kind of stuff, and you think, oh, that has no effect on me because I know that's not right and all that kind of stuff. But it does sometimes. It can. So just be aware of that. That emotional warfare is really an attack on your subconscious, and also really more importantly, I mean, I've seen that 1,000 times, and I'm not going to become anti-gun just because they're attacking my subconscious with emotional warfare. So I'm not saying that. But really, it's more people that that are they're not as much gun people as maybe a lot of us are. They're more susceptible to those kinds of attacks, of course. And and the thing is, it really is an issue. I mean, children that don't know about guns, I mean, you have to keep them away from it. They're curious, obviously. They're gonna say, "Oh, cool, gun," want to pick it up and play with it, which is why you have to train them at a really young age, and also keep them away from them. The most dangerous thing is not guns being around and children getting their hands on them. It's just children. It's just bad parents, really. It's bad parenting. That's the problem. I mean, there's a number of dangerous things that kids could get themselves into that aren't guns, that you have to teach them, of course, to stay away from. I mean, I don't have kids, so I mean, really, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. But my dad taught me when I was a kid. He would, even when I was really young, he would show me guns. He explained to me what they are and how dangerous they are, and how I was never to touch them and all this kind of stuff. And even when I was like 2 or 3 years old, I knew that I remember there was at least a couple of times where, maybe like my dad left a gun or something like that, like on the toilet seat or something. Not the toilet seat, but the top, the toilet. And that would be kind of weird if we left the gun on the toilet seat. But on the tank, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Can't think of what do you call that thing. But yeah, on the tank, he left it up there. And I remember finding it, and my reaction wasn't like, I was probably like 3 or 4 or something. It was like, oh man, Dad's gun, I'm going to play with it. It was like, oh, I don't touch that. I'm not supposed to because that's dangerous. And I understand that because I understand what dangerous is because my dad taught me, right? And I don't want to be injured. I want to live, so I'm aware of my limitations because they were made very clear to me. So I stayed away from it. And I told him, hey, Dad, you left your gun on the toilet. And he went and got it. I remember that happened at least once. I know that happened at least once, maybe twice, but so that's very important because you can't be perfect all the time. That's the thing. You can say, oh, I'll always have my guns locked up, but you don't know that you are going to necessarily. Everybody makes mistakes. It's kind of off topic, but it just made me think of it. And that's another crazy thing is I know that at least in the state of Tennessee, it may be, I'll have to research it, but I know at least in the state of Tennessee, I was told when I went through my carry class that you have to have your carry permit on you, right? It has to be actually on your person, your actual ID, your carry permit ID has to be on your person when you're carrying a gun. Otherwise, it's like not having one. That's just ridiculous to me. So you mean to tell me that I'm safe to carry a gun because I went through this class that really doesn't teach you very much? I'm safe to carry a gun, but not only if I have that little piece of plastic in my pocket with my picture on it and says carry permit, so I'm not safe to carry that gun anymore if I leave that at home. Come on, that's just ridiculous. People forget things, right? That's just insane. I don't know, that one really gets me. But yeah, the thing is, you forget things, right? So that's why, just like with the gun safety rules, that's why there's several of them, because you need to have a backup for your backup and a backup for those backups. That's the important thing. So your backup is, in that situation with children, is ram it into their head. First, honestly, you don't just teach them about guns. First, you have to teach them about danger. The fact that if their body gets seriously damaged, like, they may not be able to live. They may not be able to go trick-or-treating, So that they need to understand that first, the danger, how real it is, and how easy you can hurt yourself in this world. And then explain to them how guns can do that, how dangerous guns can be, right, and what they're capable of. And they'll understand. The kids are pretty smart, actually. They'll surprise you sometimes with what they can understand. I understood that kind of stuff at a pretty young age. And it's not because I was any smarter than anyone else. It's just because my dad actually spent a lot of time making sure that I really understood that. So that's your backup. Now, when you teach your kids that, it doesn't mean you're going to leave guns around, right? Of course not. But if that unlikely situation happens where maybe you accidentally left something out for a little bit, then they're not going to be, at least they're not going to be as quick to just pick it up like, oh, what's this, So, and of course, you can only teach your own kids. That's one problem is you might have, I don't know, maybe your kid's having a sleepover or something. Really got to be careful in that situation, because then you've got other kids that they may not even know about guns, really, or they've never been taught all that stuff. So that's the real danger. But definitely keep your guns locked up. If there's any possibility, any remote possibility of kids being around, you got to keep them locked up. And there's lots of great safes out there for that. Those quick finger safes. Now they got the biometric ones, which I'm not sure how I feel about those yet, but usually they have lots of different ways to get in them, even on the biometric ones. And there's lots of different options for that kind of thing. And you can't necessarily just rely on hiding them, because guns, kids are pretty tricky. They'll find it unless you've got some kind of hydraulic hidden compartment in the wall or something. Something crazy like that. They're gonna find it. So you can't really trust that. But let's see, what else do I have on my list of dumb ideas here to talk about? I'm gonna get better at the sneaky transitions, right? Because basically how I do these is I'll just sit down and I'll put on like a good record or something I want to listen to, and I'll think of just some topics that at the time I found interesting, and I just write them down on my like a little notebook, and I'll just write them down. And sometimes I'll come up with things I want to add to it or something, and I'll make like little extra notes and stuff. And I just kind of throughout the week or so, I just kind of have like a running list of things that I find interesting at the time. I go over it and I'll research some of it online, and just take time just to kind of think about them. And then when I feel ready, I'll hop on here and turn my gear on and start talking to you guys about it. And but yeah, I some of them I try to do kind of a little bit of a like a segue where it kind of goes smoothly or whatever. But you know, I'm more concerned with just being really, I know the term real gets overused and stuff, but really, I mean, I want to be as real as I possibly can with you guys, and just be honest. There's no need for trickery. There's no, like, why would I want to trick you guys into thinking that I'm smoother than I am or something? I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I just have some ideas that I just wanted to share with you guys and see if you find them interesting. That's all I'm trying to do. So I'm not going to worry about it too much if I don't have smooth transitions on all my topics and stuff. But yeah, so anyways, another thing that I had down here, which see, I think it might be the last thing. Yeah, I think so. But is one thing I wanted to recommend to you guys that you try if you never have is throwing knives and tomahawks or axes. I mean, that is a really fun hobby. It just is. And the cool thing about it is it doesn't cost any ammo, because knives and tomahawks and things like that don't run out of ammo, right? Of course, some of them can be a little, somewhat, it's not like buying a gun, just a little expensive, of course, when you buy them and stuff, depending on how many you end up collecting and stuff. But yeah, that's a lot of fun, and it's something that you can do a little easier maybe behind your house if you just have a little bit of property. Now you got to be careful, because I've seen throwing knives and tomahawks do some pretty crazy things. I mean, you might nick the side of the target and it just goes flying way up in the air, or really far behind the target, or off to the side. I even had a throwing knife one time. I threw it and I can't remember, it hit something weird and it bounced back at me and it came flying at me, spinning. And it was really crazy because it was like it happened in like slow motion. Felt like I was in the Matrix or something. And I remember I actually touched it with my hand and somehow it didn't hit me. I don't know. And then of course they'll bounce. You definitely want to wear shoes if you're throwing knives, because they'll bounce back and try to stick you in the feet and all kinds of stuff. So you got to be careful. It's dangerous. I mean, it is dangerous, and it's not dangerous like guns. I mean, guns technically aren't dangerous because they're very predictable. But throwing knives can be a little bit unpredictable. So you got to really be careful and stay on your toes when you're doing that. But all that aside, though, it's just so much fun. I mean, throwing knives is very difficult regardless of what you see in the movies. It's very difficult to do, but it's extremely satisfying when you stick one. I mean, you might have missed 30 in a row, but you stick one real good and solid. I mean, you feel like Rambo. I mean, it is an amazing feeling. It's like, oh man, it's like you feel like you can just do that every time, you know, and it's very satisfying. And of course, the better you get, the more fun it is. And then you get a little better, and then you start going more for accuracy, not just trying to stick it stuff. I got to where I was somewhat decent at it for a little while, but I just haven't had a place to do it. Now that I live in town, I just haven't had a place to do it. And I ended up not doing it when I'm out at the compound. But I need to get back into that. I don't really have a good backyard where I could set it up for that necessarily. But man, I'll tell you what though, I recommend anybody that can do it though. And tomahawks can be a little bit more fun because it's definitely easier. But that doesn't make it any less satisfying. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and it's a good way to kind of get started with that. But there's something neat about it, and it's very like, I mean, it's almost like, in some ways it's almost like meditation or something for me. Like back when there was a time when I used to do it a lot. I did it a ton. I was out there for hours just throwing, just throw it, go get it, walk back, throw it again, go get it, walk back, throw it again, just over and over and over and over. And it's really neat because it's like, it really gives you a chance to really just be introspective about your life and think about things. But then also it makes you sharper too at the same time, because you're having to focus and you're working on muscle memory. And anytime you're doing that, anytime you're doing something where you're developing muscle memory and sharpness and accuracy and depth perception, all those things help you with lots of other things, whether it's driving cars, shooting guns. Those are all good things, and they're entertainment. Back to like what I was saying about the TV shows. See, there's an example of something that you can do that you'll actually get a lot of benefit from. Even exercise, you can even get. I mean, really, if you're throwing tomahawks, I mean, it's a little bit. It's a physical thing. So I mean, you're going to get a little bit of exercise, at least, not a lot, but some. I mean, at least your throwing arm's going to get a little bit stronger. But it's really good. It's a really healthy thing to do. I mean, it just really sharpens your mind and all those kinds of things. It's really good. It's a really good thing to do. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Maybe at some point I'll make a video on that. Just kind of once I get back into it and kind of get my groove back a little bit. Because it's kind of like one of those things where if you spend a lot of time developing the muscle memory, you might kind of forget. But then once you do it a little bit, then you kind of get the hang of it again, and you can get back pretty close to where you were before. I'm like that with basketball. I haven't shot basketball in a pretty long time, but if I went to a gym, I'd embarrass myself. Right, the first few shots I took, probably an air ball, a bunch of bricks. But you give me a little time, you give me about 30 minutes or so, I'll get my shot back, and I'll just be hitting everything. Not everything, but that was something I was always good at when I played basketball. Was mid-range jump shots and stuff. And it's funny because you never lose it, really. You know, it's like you forget it, and then you kind of do a little bit, and then you remember it, and it's like you're right back where you were. So it's kind of the same thing when it comes to shooting. I don't know if shooting is like that really, because I've never taken that much of a break from it when I was taking it seriously. But I know that like throwing knives and tomahawks, it's kind of like that because it's such a big muscle memory thing. But yeah, I may make some videos on that sometime. And I've been having fun doing the YouTube videos, doing the guns and stuff. And like I mentioned before, I'm not really trying to do reviews of those guns. I may title the video of whatever the gun is that I'm doing, but I'm not actually trying to make that a review necessarily. That is just because there's no need to, it's kind of redundant if I do that. I may do some at some point. Maybe on the Hickok channel, I may do some reviews at some point on there. But really, the way I see it on the Hickok and Son channels, I'm just kind of bringing out a gun that I like, that I find interesting, and I just kind of talk about some things that the gun makes me think of, or just some things that at the time seemed kind of interesting to me. And I still feel awkward in front of the camera. I'm still working on knocking down that barrier, which it just takes time. That's the thing. It just takes time. The main thing is I'm trying to be as real and as honest as I possibly can, but you just can't do that until you get used to being in front of the camera. I've gotten better. I feel a little more comfortable doing the radio shows because I'm just sitting here in my room or at one of the rooms in the house talking to a microphone. So it's a little bit less demanding in that sense. But it'll just take time to where I can just forget about the camera and just be myself. It'll just take a little bit of time for that. It's just not easy. If you've never done it, then it's easy to think that it's not that hard because there's so many people who are really good at it. But it just is. When you've got a camera in your face, it makes you it makes it hard to just be yourself. And like I think I explained in one radio show, I mean, it's a barrier. It's a thing something that prevents you from being yourself because you know that there's this thing that's looking at you and it sees everything you're doing, and then all these people are watching and all this kind of stuff, and it's hard to I mean, really, it's kind of not that it's not like, oh, I'm terrified of being on the camera, but it is still, it's a fear basically to some extent. And sometimes it's hard it takes time to train yourself to let go of those kinds of things. But yeah, so anyways, I've been having fun with that, and I hope you guys have been enjoying some of the video. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to point out, the video I did where the long range buckshot thing. I know some people, because I missed the gong, they said that they thought, oh, it wasn't viable at all. Well, here's the thing. I did miss the gong, of course. I was trying to hit it, but I just let it rip. I just emptied the whole magazine and just let them hit with a hit. And I tried to hold it as steady as I possibly could. But after those first couple rounds went off in that string, I couldn't even see the gong. So I was just trying to hold it steady. I couldn't even tell where it was aimed. So basically what happened was I was aimed at the gong at first, but on that first shot, I pulled it to the right, and then it just stayed there. So if I tried it again a few times, I probably could have. And if you notice, the group actually, it moved. It kind of started like low right, I think, and kind of went up a little bit to the side. So actually, I thought that proved that it actually was pretty viable as a long range buckshot kind of thing. But there was just a little bit of human error in there on my part that made it seem otherwise. But I was actually kind of surprised at how tight that group was out there, even though it kind of moved a little bit. So I may have to, next time we get a sub gun or something to shoot, I may have to try that again and see if I can do better and actually hold it on a specific target a little better, because I find that kind of interesting. People really knock full auto a lot, almost unfairly, because it's almost like there's this element out there that in the gun culture where they've decided that it's cool to be like, oh, full auto, oh yeah, all you kids that think full auto is cool, I'm over it. I'm just so over full auto. I'm not on that level where I think that full auto is cool. I'm over it. There's kind of like that kind of element. Full auto does have purposes. One, it's really fun, and even sometimes people will deny that. It seems like, oh, waste of ammo. It's not a waste of ammo. It's fun. You spent that ammo having fun. How are you going to shoot a fully automatic and say that wasn't fun? But they do have some purpose though. So don't be blinded by the whole like, oh, I've got to look cool and act like I don't need full auto. It's junk. Which you don't necessarily need it, but depending on the circumstance. But I think it could actually have some really good applications, and one of them, as I see it, could be as kind of a long range shotgun in a sense, because shotgun, the further out it is, the more it spreads. But with a sub gun, you kind of have the same thing, but the spread is more, it's more something that you can kind of control on your own to an extent. Now, the further out it is going to spread more, but you're going to be able to keep especially if you practice a little bit, a tighter group at a longer range. So, if you say like in a military situation, you've got some kind of situation where there's some guys taking shots at you and they're like, I don't know, 90 or 100 yards away, let's say, and they've got, decent cover or something. And you had the choice between, now obviously a rifle, like a regular rifle probably be ideal, but you had the choice between a shotgun or let's say you were trying to really get a bunch of rounds on them quick because you're trying to move somewhere else or something like that. And they've got rifles and they're being able to put shots on your location very accurately, and they've got you pinned down or something. And you want to be able to just make them have to duck for cover so that you can get out of the way, like suppressing fire. I guess that includes what that would be. Well, the shotgun, at that range, it's going to have quite a bit of spread. You might get lucky and get one on them or something. But with the sub gun, if you really have good control, you're going to be you could really hammer those rounds in there. And I know if I'm pretty far away and all of a sudden all these 9mm rounds or whatever they are, 45, depending on what kind of sub gun you have, they're just really just pounding away at my position. I'm going to stay behind whatever I think can stop those bullets. I'm not going to be sticking my head out until that's stopped, So I don't know. It could have some applications. Again, I've never been in the military, so I don't have that frame of reference other than just theoretical based on what I know about it. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys again next time. And actually, I've already got here in my notebook of dumb ideas, I already have all the topics for the next one. So I may do that actually before too long. So I'll try to do some more videos as I have time and things like that. We're really busy right now. We get a lot of guns in and stuff like that. Just just trying to keep cranking out good material. And the Hickok 45 and Son thing is kind of a secondary thing, and I don't always have a lot of time to like, especially making gun videos, because whenever the weather is nice to do a video, we're working on stuff obviously for Hickok 45. But at times I'll do those, but the radio shows I'll definitely be able to do because I have time for that. But anyways, I hope you guys keep watching the videos and everything, and I'll talk to you guys next time.